We need
That's your.
can you help me out with the screen?
Yes, absolutely. That seems fair. I'm very silly. You have not done that. Stream is extreme. You just can't.
Do 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 do. Very dramatic.
You got it earlier. So give it away. There you go. Well, also all that. So it's
Inside scoop. Uh, hello. My name is still Aaron Gordon. My pronouns are he, him. I'm design director at Brace Yourself Games. This is so we discussed earlier. Like, here are some game design frameworks you can use. This is some of that. This is also so like what are the main skills that game developers look for in hiring? What are the main things that we could do to help improve people's portfolios? And also just a grab bag of a bunch of stuff that doesn't warrant its own talk, but is really good information. It's information that I keep adding to this presentation over the years. It's stuff that like I wish somebody had told me. I hope that some of you look at this stuff and go, oh, obviously, that's so obvious. And I'm like, yes, thank you. You're ahead of where I was. So I hope this is useful. Stop me at any time if you want me to elaborate on anything. I've still worked on these games. I haven't made a game since I last spoke to you. But for anybody joining us who's new, I made these games, or I was part of a team that made these games. And I've always been in design, and it's a lot of fun. Common design pitfalls. I'm going to go through these. We've all made them. I've made each one of these numerous times. I'm just going to go through what some of them are, how best to avoid them, what you can learn. One of the main ones that I struggled with a lot was saying yes to the player. When I first started out, I was very much, I want to create this experience, and players will have this experience. And I would have a bunch of play tests for my games, like very basic games, but they would go off and do something else. They would have exploits. They would interact with things that I didn't anticipate. And my gut reaction was to be like, no, I don't want them to do that. I want them to do this other thing. So I'd either remove those features or I would, you know, nerf them in some way. And it wasn't a good idea. I think the player is not your enemy. It's kind of the D&D mindset. If you're ever running a campaign, if you're the game master, your job is to allow the players to have fun. It's not to be like they have to follow my storyline. If you've ever played D&D, you've probably played with a DM who's like that. Maybe you are like that. Maybe some players like that. Sure. The best ones that I've been in are like, I want to do a backflip and chop this helicopter in half with my katana blade. And it's like, okay, that's pretty crazy. How, sell it to me. Sell to me how you're going to do that. I'm going to burn all of my resources, do all of this. So one in a million shots. If I fail, all these bad things will happen. DM's like, okay, cool. They say yes. They make it exciting. They make it fun. Destiny had a loot cave for a long time. It was some of the best fun I've ever had in the game. It's not particularly a rewarding activity, but you feel so cool. Like you discovered a secret and you're just murdering things in a cave and just picking up their loot. It's awesome. So just saying yes to the player, doing playtests, reminding yourself that you're not there to stop the player having fun or to have like your own idea of what fun is. And especially the best feeling you can leave a player is if a player leaves your game feeling that they've got one over on you. They're like, haha, I found a way around that obstacle in the level. I took a shortcut. And you're standing behind the monitor as a designer, like, oh yeah, oh, definitely didn't think about that. Like, good job, Mrs. Player. You did an awesome job. So yeah, say yes. They're here to have a good time. Use procedural tools. Procedural tools are awesome. They are great when you don't need precision. If you just need a open play space, don't overthink it. Put a noise filter on some Unreal, like height generation. Just do that. You can also use Unreal's got a great like few plugins for just looking at raw map data, like Google Earth data. You can go, I want this mountain range in my game. And there's a little bit of finicky, like a little bit of back and forth with it, but you just put that map data in from Google Maps, boom, you've got Jasper, like mountain range in. If you don't really care about precision, awesome. Take advantage at every turn. It'll save you a whole bunch of time. You need to manage it carefully. If your game is about exploring mountains and you just procedurally generate all of your mountains. I'm not saying that's not necessarily a good game, but you got to be very careful. This is called procedural oatmeal. Each bowl of oatmeal is procedurally generated, and after you examine each bowl of oatmeal, it's very different from the last bowl of oatmeal. You as a player are like, that's a bowl of oatmeal. That's the same. They're all the same. No Man's Sky did this. A bunch of other um, games do this, where like you can go to a bazillion planets, and each one is super different. After the third one, I'm like, it's the same. Perceivably, it's the same. What I found useful is you take control where you need it. I use this metaphor a lot, where it's like, yeah, you have procedural foundation. Make sure to put some intense flavor on the top. Make sure to, if you have a procedural height map, that's fine. Make sure to then make deliberate dents in it, put really big, like different shapes on it. So this planet is all about big spheres, this planet is all about big cubes, or like this one's about valleys, this one's about mountains. Don't be subtle, because players are not going to pick up on your subtleties. You, as a developer designer, know each little crevice in your game. Players don't. They're going to gloss over a bunch, and you don't want them to come away feeling like that was all the same. On Elite Dangerous, I spent a long time working on the procedural mission system, and my job was to like, okay, if you go to this star system and you do a little bit of crime, you will increase the price of contraband weapons will go up in this region. But I was way too subtle about it, and I was like, it goes up by 1% for every ship that's destroyed. And then the feedback I got on the forums was like, oh yeah, the random mission system just seems to only spit out these kinds of missions. I'm like, it's not random. I spent months putting this together with cause and effect, but I was just too precious about it, and it was too small, wasn't big and dramatic enough. And then we did that, and it was better. Speaking of playtesting feedback is awesome. You should do this all the time, as often as you can, especially when I say as often as you can. It's most impactful when you have something to test, like a user story. You're like, I think it's true. I want to test a wider audience if it's true, especially difficulty. Um, Playtesting is good, so like putting out your build on Discord or sharing it remotely with friends is great. Watching people play is there's no substitute for watching people either in person, or if you are on Discord, getting them to share their screen, and take you through stuff. I found success with getting people just to talk out loud. So I tell like, just give me a stream of consciousness as you're talking. Don't be polite. Don't be nuanced. You can just say, this is fun. I'm having fun. Angry person with a knife. Probably dangerous. I'm going to hide. Okay, I'm not going to hide. I'm bored now. I'm bored of hiding. That's what you want. You want someone just to give you their thoughts. Um, be wary of giving people what they want, and be wary of taking rid of something that they hate. Like, hate is not the opposite of love. It's very, if somebody hates something, normally they're very close to really, really enjoying it. And that's how you get a game that's kind of a little bit mushy. That's how you get this, where like every PvP game ever, it's like they nerfed this and it's the worst and I hate it. I want more knives, more guns. I want this gun to do more damage. I want this thing to be faster. Players players are notoriously bad at articulating what they want, which is fine. I know nothing about cars, and if you put me in a car, I'd be like, it's not very comfortable. It's too loud. I want it to be quieter. I don't know anything about cars. Don't listen to me. But you should get to the heart of what I'm saying. Be like, okay, this person's just, they don't mind the performance of the car. The experience of being in a car is not hitting them. So maybe we can solve it in a different way. Or maybe it's just like that person doesn't like any cars, and we're just never going to make a car that's right for this person. That's fine too. Don't get rid of what they hate. I will. This is my hill, the thing that I will die on. Like, the blue shell is the best thing in Mario Kart. If you took the blue shell out of Mario Kart, nobody would play it. It wouldn't be as good of a game. It's there as a very purposeful thing, and some of that is to create a very strong reaction and emotion from the player in first. If it didn't do that, it wouldn't be as good of a game. But players, well, you'll never find somebody outside of game dev. But I've never found anybody who goes, I freaking love Blue Shell. Blue Shell's the best. Everyone's like, oh, I hate it. It's so unbalanced. It doesn't feel fair. This and this, but it's integral to making Mario Kart what it is. For level design, basic shapes are super great for layouts and maps. You've probably all been making areas and it feels a little samey or it's hard to get like some real personality in there. Don't overthink it. Literally make a map about squares. Literally make a map where all of your stamp side is triangle shaped. That's it. Everything's going to have three sides. Everything's going to have four sides. Because if you stay with a strong foundation, it shows in your end result. You can see here like the same shape language follows all the way through, and they're three very distinct buildings, three very distinct pathways, very distinct cars. That's not a circle, the car, but they've leaned into circular shapes. And that car's not a triangle, but they lean into triangular hard edges. And this is really useful when you're just starting out. We literally did this yesterday on Phantom Brigade, where we're making some new maps, and I'm working with the designer there, and I'm like, give me one map that's made only out of triangles, one that's made only out of circles, and one's made only out of squares. And they play very differently, and they look really distinct. And I'm like, yes, we're not going to ship them like that, but it's a good starting point, and we'll slowly refine it and make it look pretty. But when you're starting out, just go really basic shapes. This is a hard one. Own your design failures. You got to fail fast. You got to fail often. You will continue to do this and learn throughout your career as a game developer. That's fine. Just keep doing it. Um, one of the thing you want to do is make sure you learn from your mistakes. One of the most in hindsight obvious mistakes I made early on in my career. I was working on a freemium like mobile title. This is back when Farmville was like the thing. Everyone's like, Hammer Hotel, Farmville, this is it. This is the future of video games. And we made a game where you managed your own rockstar, and it was kind of like Sims like, and you managed their schedule and you managed like their skills and you got them to practice, like half Tamagotchi esque. Uh, it was fun. It was a little bit basic. It was fun. And one of the features of this game, which we all thought was amazing in the room, was like we have this new API that we can use from one of our partners, and they'll spoof a telephone call to you. We could fit this into the theming of our game by having like you're the agent. We could have your star, your pop star, call you, and then we had a pre-recorded message or a selection of them to say, "Hey, it's me here. I'm your star. I'm at the red carpet event, and the paparazzi are everywhere. Come and help me out." And they'd hang up. When you then go into the game next, you'd play a mini game that was that. You'd help them to their car, whatever. So what people really love in their day-to-day life, or they love being called by their game to come back to play. It was awful. It's terrible. And not only that, but this was a thing you had to pay for. You had to upgrade to get this experience. You could uninstall the game, which people did. This was a really bad idea, and we chased it and we chased and we saw it coming. We were like, is it too difficult? Is it too no no people will like it. No, we'll frame it in such a way people will be connected, they'll be invested. Absolutely not. I think we got like out of a few tens of thousands of downloads, we had like six people upgrade to this past the trial thing. And those six people were probably my nan and friends and family. So own it early. It doesn't make you a bad developer. It doesn't make you a bad designer, artist, engineer. That's video games. The worst thing you can do is stick with it, hold your guns, and then take a whole team with you to make a mistake. You just be like, yeah, my bad. Messed up. Like, that's not cool. Let's move forward. Let's not do this again. Let's learn. Let's move. And then you'll turn this into this, and you'll learn from your mistake, and you won't do it again. Or you'll make brand new mistakes that are even more nuanced and complicated to unravel. A way to find those mistakes really early is to surprise. You've heard me say this before. Just get the things into the game. There's no substitute for it. You can do all the paper design in the world, but until you get into the game, everything's theoretical. I've been surprised and baffled and amused and vilified so many times by he just goes into the game and we see. I would often have like when I worked at Ubisoft, I'd have like people rightfully questioning like, hey, are the puzzles you're designing too difficult? Are they too challenging? And the answer is always like, let's get to playtest. Because you and me know exactly how the game works. And we know that, like, of course, you shoot fire to the red orb and you shoot ice to the ice orb. It's so obvious. And then we put it in front of a player, and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh, because they haven't got a flamethrower equipped. They don't see the interaction. They're just shooting at it with, nuclear weapons. It doesn't do anything at all. And so it just appears very difficult for them. Where to me, it's like it's so obvious. Just getting into the game, seeing how actual players perceive your game. This is a skill you'll learn as well as you keep developing a way to kind of shut your brain off when you're testing your own game. It's really difficult. I've only worked with one person who could do this really well. His name's Laurent from UB as well, and he would walk out of the room and come back and just put on a whole persona, and he'd ham it up and be like, "Hey, cool! Oh, I know you're making this game. Cool! I know nothing about this game. What is it? Space game? Awesome! Oh, here's the controller. Great!" And you just start mashing the controller, like as a player would, and just start doing stuff. And we'd all be like cringing and dying inside because we know that he just like unequipped his best stuff and he's shooting the floor and he's killing it. And he'd be like, "I'm confused. What's happening? Oh, that's a shiny thing. I'm going to go follow that." And we're all there like, "Oh no, he's not following the demo walkthrough." But that's how players are going to play the game. They're just going to do things, and that's really useful to playtest for. That's also very useful to learning how to play it yourself like that. You should establish. Oh yeah, and this helps you avoid being trapped in discussions where like, but what if we balance it in this way? No, I think it's going to be better to balance it this way. But what if we balanced it a third way? We're just like, what's the easiest one to try? Let's do that, and we'll try it tomorrow. We'll playtest it, and then you let the playtest figure out if it's good or not. A good way to run an effective playtest is to have what we call acceptance criteria. So we know that the boss fight is balanced well if people beat the boss fight in under 5 minutes. That's how it's the first boss in the game. It's not supposed to be super challenging. Great. And so that's a metric that you can analyze and go, cool, 80% of people beat it under 5 minutes. Tick. Yes. How can we improve to get those other 20% of people? But for the most part, we're good. And again, it gets the emotion out of the room. It gets the ego out. It's not like, I think it was too hard. I think it was too easy. We're like, well, look at the metrics that we decided, like, this says this. Um, and then a lot of the time, you learn, you make a clear decision with the team. Any decision is often better than no decision. Like, if you're there thinking, okay, this boss needs to be easier because of our metrics, you're like, okay, cool, let's make a directed, um, like a clear effort in the other direction. Let's give it half as much health. I wouldn't worry about like, let's try and change one thing at a time. Don't go like, let's shave down its attack and let's do this and do that, because then it'll be really hard to pin down exactly what made the needle change. Change one thing, be like half its health, done. Another playtest, or playtest it yourselves, and then you'll know kind of the cause and effect of it. I'm also going to talk about soft skills after I take a sip of coffee. Soft skills are um, your ability as a designer and game dev to communicate, to work with the rest of the team. They're the opposite of what we'd call hard skills, where hard skills are like, how good at Unreal are you? What's your programming ability? Can you create good artwork? Soft skills is like, can you work within a deadline? Can you work with other people? Can you articulate your ideas? Can you work to spec? Um, and these are every single time more important than hard skills. Hard skills can be taught fairly easily. There's a rubric of like, I know how to teach anybody Unreal. Give me 2 months and you'll be competent in Unreal and be able to do a bunch of stuff. YouTube tutorials, whatever. There's not a good YouTube tutorial session about how to work in a team. You just kind of got to do it. You kind of have to have that empathy. And as a designer, it's really important to remember as part of your building your soft skills that you don't have all the game ideas. It's not up to you as a designer to just do everything. It's up to you as a designer to work with the team, to take everybody's input on board. Nothing destroys a team quicker than having an alter designer on the team who's like, well, it has to be like this. It doesn't work in like it doesn't work with like friends or making a side project. It doesn't work in a professional setting either. It just creates real toxic environments. I've been there. It's not been pleasant. The best designers I've ever seen are ones that ensure the pieces fit together. I like this slide a lot. My old boss once told me that like ideas aren't cheap, ideas are really important, but everybody has them. Everybody has like cool Lego. Everybody can make Lego. Everybody can jam Lego pieces together and go, I made this. I made this. I made this. That doesn't mean that the thing that I made is particularly amazing or the thing that you made is particularly amazing because we're swimming in Lego, we're wading through it. And it's like there's ideas or potential for ideas everywhere. But it's your idea, is your job as a designer to go through and go, that's a cool idea. Okay, this part doesn't really fit though, but everything else is really cool. What if we combined this idea? Okay, let's take away half of that idea. These two fit really well together now. Okay, there's other stuff around here from other games. What if we borrowed this feature wholesale from the dialogue tree from Persona, and we do this and this, and it's you fitting together everything else while taking input from the team. It's not you coming up with your vision and staying true to that vision. Asked me my opinion about Hideo Kojima and his book. His book is titled The Genius Gene, and it's the worst thing in the world. Um, Somebody needs to stop giving him money to make whatever games he wants. I'm glad they exist, but yeah, more team working people, less alters. Be a professional. The best design doesn't always ship. I've Every single game I've worked on, you make concessions. It doesn't mean you make a bad game, but it means that you are realistic. You work within the strength of your team, what you can comfortably achieve. It's much better to do a 7 out of 10 job and have it complete and feel like you did it and you completed the thing than you strive for this unknown and you don't accomplish anything. You should be open to hearing suggestions, concerns, and compromises from your team, even if it seems really like unrealistic to you or you don't see where the other person's coming from. It's important to hear people out. There may be something you don't understand. I've been in loads of positions where I've been asking engineers to be like, do the thing. And I haven't appreciated how hard that is. Or I haven't appreciated like that person really struggles to do that thing. And so it's either, oh, I didn't realize this was a like difficult. I know this other person who's really good at it. Let's put you two together so you can work together on it. Or I'm like, oh, okay, is there any other better way that we can achieve this? All I care about as a designer is that we hit these goals and that the game loop does these things. Oh, well, then in that case, I'm not very good at drawing this kind of thing, but I could do this instead. I'm like, yeah, that perfect, amazing. So compromise doesn't always mean worse. It means like you can get to it faster, you can play test things faster, and you're not stuck. And trust your team. If you're working together on a team, chances are you all want to make a good video game. Nobody signs up to make a video game because they want to make a bad game and do a bad job. We're all very passionate, like we want to be doing it. So trust them. The important thing here is give them creative freedom if they want it. Some people don't want it, which baffles me in my core, but I understand like I had an engineer I worked with at Phoenix Labs who I would always bring into design conversations. I was like, Kyle, what do you think? Do you think we should be like this? How should we generate this world? And after we got like, more friendly with each other and more used to working with each other, he's like, Aaron, I actually don't care. I actually just want to make shaders. I just want to make shaders. I just want to make ProcGen stuff. You tell me the spec. I trust you. We'll just do that. And I'm like, you sure? You don't want to, tell me what you want to build? And he's like, no, I just want to do this thing. It brings me actually a lot of anxiety when you come to me and ask me what to do because I'm not the expert. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can definitely just tell you I would like it like this. He's like, thank you. Amazing. So calibrate your team. Some people, you know, I'm like this with narrative. I have lots of opinions on narrative, but I'm not an expert, so probably don't ask me, ask me to read it and proofread and give my opinion, but don't come to me and ask like, what do you think the story should go? Because I'm going to go, and I'm going to get a bit paralyzed. Any questions on all that stuff before we go? Okay, this is the most important part of anything I'm going to say today. This is the how to get a job in games. One of the most There's this one simple trick. Um, and it's really important, and you should probably not listen to me about how to get a job in games. I got into games even like 12 years ago. It is a totally different environment now. Games move so quickly. That doesn't mean that we can't share knowledge and have a good chat, but I implore you, if anybody stands up in front of you and tells you, do these three things to guarantee success, like, you gotta take it, not take it on face value. GDC and YouTube and stuff is tricky with this. A lot of people will promise the world of like, do these, definitely do these things, and you'll definitely get a chance to do these. The elephant in the room is that it's tough right now. It's pretty tough in the industry. You only need to Google video game industry and you see a lot of, yes, yesterday. Yeah. Um, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. There is a lot going on, and not all of it is good, and it can sometimes feel you feel that in your bones. I wouldn't want to stand up in front of you and be disingenuous and say, just do these things, just work on your portfolio, and everything's going to be great. Like, we should acknowledge this. We should also acknowledge that there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff happening. Diversity and inclusion is way better than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There's still a lot to be done, loads to do, loads of really important things, but it is very different from how it was even 5, 10 years ago. New funding opportunities are coming through, like the old funding model is, proving out to not be. Who knew that making most of a game and then going and asking for funding for most of after the fact would be not a good idea. But that's how it always worked, right? And now that it doesn't work that way, we're trying to make games that are more sustainable. At BYG, we're definitely doing the same thing. We're trying to like look at the games that are doing well and going, cool, here is our budget for the next game. Here's how we be self-sufficient. Here's how we can be self-funding. Here's how we don't burn our developers out. 5 years ago, if you asked anybody about crunch, they'd be like, just happens. In video games, every single developer just crunches. Now it's a dirty word. Like in the industry, we're really pulling back from that idea of you got to work really long hours, which is great. It's amazing. Video games should be a long time career for somebody. It shouldn't be something where, excuse me, I think when I started out, go take some more coffee. When I started out, I think the average was like 7 years in the industry, and people would burn out and go. Now that's way longer. Now people are making a substantial, like a solid career choice when they go into video games. Um, and you see sales doing well. You see people playing more video games than ever. The market is not dying, as some people would like lead you to believe. People are still playing games. Loads of people are still like, even people that don't consider themselves gamers. You get everybody playing on mobile. You get people playing in browsers. People playing other things. Like, they're gamers. They're playing other things, and they transition to other things as well. You got to you got a whole bunch of stories where it's like people reached out to things. Like, I just dropped them an email. One person made like a Queen's Gambit game or small team. Like, these opportunities are there, and good things are happening. So yes, these are two quotes that I like to hold in tension with each other, because if you take any one of these, it's a bit much. But these two, for me personally, work well. Take it or leave it. Got luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. This is the idea that you can make a bit of your own luck. Now, this is a very loaded statement if you take it by yourself. Some people use it to mean you got to bootstrap it. You can do anything you want. That's not how it works. Loads of people we don't all come in at the same playing field. Some people come in with a huge amount of privilege and they just have loads more opportunities. What I take from it is that you do have a lot of agency over things, and it means that um, you do have the opportunity to build up yourself and to make opportunities for yourself. They are out there, and holding that in tension as well is good old Captain Kirk. And it's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. You can do all the right things. You can be working on a portfolio. It can be awesome. You can have a kick-ass like game that you've made, and you can still not get the callbacks. You can still not get the interview. You can still not get the job. That doesn't mean you're doing badly. That doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. It's tough right now. These two things are both true. Okay. So I want to acknowledge that because that's what everybody's feeling. I feel it too. So if you will humor me, take me off mute, take everything I say with a pinch of salt. I come at you with one perspective. I will do as much as I can to increase everybody's luck as much as I can. And yes, that is it. Okay, so now the section is actually how to increase your odds, what to include in your resume, portfolio, valuable skills. I look at a lot of portfolios, I look at a lot of resumes, I do a lot of great conversations like this. So I'm very happy to share there's a bunch of common things that people have room to improve on. There's lots of things that people are doing well. There's lots of things that I see if a resume comes across my desk, I'm like, yes, immediately, let's give this person a call. I don't know if I mentioned how important it is finishing and shipping games yet, but in case I haven't, it's really important that you finish and ship games. They don't need to be good. If I'm looking to hire you for a position, I will almost go as so far to say and be very flippant, like I kind of don't care how good quality your game is. I just care that it is there and it is finished, or that it is at a state that it is playable and you were able to put it down. And all I need is a short blurb from you to be like, we set out to achieve this. We learned this along the way. We would do this differently. Here's what we learned. I'm like, tick, 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 ding, 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 amazing. The reality is that if you send off your resume to a company, even an indie company, it's very unlikely they're going to sit there and play your game. They might watch a video of it, they might scrub through it a little bit, they might look at a few screenshots. I sincerely wish I could play those games. And even when I had, it's sometimes difficult to like if this is an RPG that you've made, or if this is a 3 hour long game that you've made, I just don't have the capacity to play hundreds of 3 hour games. I wish I did. So you got to make it really snappy to somebody. All I care about is that you've made a game and you've finished games. Not only will this make you look better to somebody who's hiring for a job, but it will just make you a better developer and you will have something to show for it. If you go a few months and you are not fortunate to get an interview, you still can look back on your time and go, I made 3 games. I made one a month and I've learned a huge amount. And every game I'm going to make after this is just going to be better for it. None of those games should be your perfect games, should be, yeah, you're going to look at each one of those in 5 years' time and go, ooh, yeah, okay. It's not going to be amazing, but you're going to learn a lot. For context, these are some of the games that I've made in game jams. I wouldn't hold any one of these up and be like, this is amazing. They're all like games we made in a week. There's like platformers, there's infinite runners, there's a rhythm game that I made before I knew anything about music theory. And I was like, yeah, you just press buttons, right? It's really easy. Working for 3 years now on a rhythm game, it's really difficult. Um, Players' brains are stupid, and what you hear and what you see, that's very complicated. I work with very talented people who have gone through this before, and they teach me a lot. But these are not my best games, but every one of these I walked away from learning 2 years worth of knowledge out of working on a AAA product or something. 'Cause you just do it really fast, you learn really quickly, and then you move on. So when I see games like this in a portfolio, and if I can click on the YouTube video and watch it, amazing, great. And if I can see that you're hosting it on itch or something, that's great. Yeah, again, this is the why. You get better at every stage of production. Closing a game is the most difficult part. The most fun part is being at the beginning and prototyping stuff. It's doing the stuff we did in the break on the whiteboard and coming up with ideas. The hard bit is when we get halfway through all of those ideas and it's just not fitting together and we're having to make some cuts and things aren't working out. That's the really difficult time in game dev and the not so fun part, but the most valuable part for people to get experience in. And if I can see somebody's already gone through that and they have been able to look at their stuff and separate out their emotions from it and go, do you know what? I just need to get the game done. So I made these decisions. If I had more time and more resources, if I went back, I would do these things differently. I'm like, amazing. This person gets it. Fabulous. That's such a hard lesson to teach. And if that person's already there, I can teach them Unreal, no problem. Teach them Unity, no problem. So yeah, one finished product better than 10 unfinished prototypes every day. Don't be subtle in a portfolio. This is one thing that I see often. I see people like click on all of these tabs to see each one of my projects. And it's like, I wish you would make it easy for me. I wish you weren't as subtle. I've got to like read a lot of text to get to like, okay, what do you actually do on this game? What are your actual like proudest of? What are your skills? A portfolio is not the time to be subtle. Brag about yourself. Don't lie, but I did this, I did this, I did this. Image, 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 image. Very clear. Um, don't be like, I was part of a team that did this, that worked towards this. Tell me exactly what you did and where you're strongest. Your portfolio is your resume's backup. So your resume is your way in. It kind of intrigues somebody. It's like, oh, that's intriguing, interesting. The next thing that someone's going to do is go to your portfolio and then see more details. So your resume can just give you a 1 or 2 sentence example of like, I did this kind of stuff. And then every time I get a resume, I'm looking for the hyperlink. I'm looking for the itch page. I'm looking for LinkedIn. I'm looking for examples of your work. So, and you want each one of these to just hit me really hard. And I'm not looking at each one for like 20 minutes. I'm just being like, oh, yep, okay, they know this. Great, they've done some engineering work. Yep, they've done this. Amazing, fantastic. It's a living document. It's not one and done. You've got to keep updating it. You've got to only show your best work. You've got to showcase your skills. Um, this is tricky, but it will benefit you for it to be tailored for the job you want. I've seen lots of very promising designers like on their resumes and on their portfolio, but I'm like, I don't know what they specialize in. And I'm seeing them, okay, you've made these 5 different games and they're 5 very wildly different systems. And you've told me you're a systems designer, but what kind of systems are you good at? Or they haven't called out, I like making a multitude of systems, because that is valid as well. Just be very clear with what you're going for and make sure it is tailored to the job that you want. It's not a resume, it's not the same. It needs to be a little bit more expansive for each section, but still very punchy. It's not an interview. We're not going to go as in depth. In an interview is the time where I'll be like, so you worked on this feature. You made these things. Tell me more about that. That's really interesting. Tell me exactly how you did it. Then you can give me the juicy details and the nuts and bolts of it. Don't put that in a resume. Give me the high level stuff. It's also not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that you'll get to the next stage, but it is super, super important. I don't think I've ever um, I don't think I've ever called somebody back for an interview if they haven't had a robust portfolio, unless they've come highly recommended from somebody I know and trust. That's not because they might have been amazing, but when I've got, and I'm just sharing this very very straightforward with you folks, so you know what goes on, like get the inside scoop. If I've got 20 resumes here and all have portfolios, and I've got yours that doesn't have a portfolio, you might be just as good as them on paper, but they got a portfolio that I can go and look at, and I'm not going to go digging. I'm not going to go, I've got no reason to be like, but I really want this person to do it, even though you might be the best for the job. If it's not clear, then it just makes it hard for me to pick you. Show your process. Again, I care much more about your process than I do about your finished product. Your game is probably not going to be that amazing and that awesome. It's probably going to be a few short experiences. That's totally fine. I honestly, me personally, couldn't care less exactly how high quality your game is. I care that it's finished, and I care that there's something short that I can look at on your portfolio that says, here's the process we kind of took. We did these kind of game pillars, we did this kind of game loop. Don't show me the 100-page game document. I'm not going to read it, but please show me like, we learned this, and here's the process, and we were trying to achieve this, and we went about it this way, and then here's what we did. I'm like, cool, you had some kind of process, you didn't just wing it. Now I know that you can replicate that success. You can replicate things. Uh, you're not just doing stuff as you see fit. Be flexible and adaptive. Show that you made changes to your project. Show that you went back to your pillars and you were like, this wasn't working, so we got rid of it. We did something else. Amazing, great. And like we said before, tailor your portfolio to the job that you want. Super important. Paper prototyping is great. People often say like they don't want to put their messy drawings or things that aren't highly polished on their portfolio. As a designer, this is like catnip to me. This is like, I want to see it. As soon as I see this, I literally audibly go, ooh, oh, amazing, great. that's the game. That's I can see your process. I can see where you've rubbed stuff out and drawn stuff again. There's so much nuance in how you put together a paper design. Again, I really don't care if it's a great paper design or not. I just care that you've done that work and that you haven't just gone straight in game and got to the fun part and started moving props around. I know that you've sat down, thought about it. Show me this. I don't know what the heck is going on in this diagram, but I know this person thought about it and they wanted this to be 3 minutes, something about a dam, and they wanted this to be 7 minutes, and they wanted something at 12:50. Great. They had a plan. They drafted it out. They went and play tested it. Same with blockouts. Blockouts are great. Make sure that what you show me is that the intent is very clear, and don't show me everything. Show me some very clear and concise, like this is a vista shot where you see the path going up this way and there's a something to attract your line of sight here. Give me an overlay if you want. There's some arrows on this one. You can kind of see it. That you can show me. You can see from this one, like, oh, it's a combat arena. There's NPCs. Great. I'm not going to go in here and get a protractor out and be like, did you get your line of sight right? But I can see here your intent. I can see it's very clear. It's very easy for you to get your vision across if you were to show me this in a design. Layouts and scripting. Show me this. I'm not going to read your scripts. I'm not going to go through your Unreal blueprints, but I am excited to see a screenshot of some custom blueprints that you've made. And all I'm doing mentally is going, tick, yep, they know scripting. Great. Awesome. Especially as a designer, you don't have to necessarily be a coder, but it is very, very beneficial to know how to script things together in a basic way. We will often task program designers with prototyping things or kit bashing things together and just knowing your way around an editor. Doesn't matter what, if you're applying for a large company. To our earlier point, they almost certainly have their own proprietary software that you're probably not going to be using stock Unreal unless you go work for the Coalition or another Epic studio. You're probably going to work with some custom engine, or you're going to work with a version of Unreal that has so many modifiers and so many add-ons that it's going to function differently. But if somebody goes, yeah, I've got like Unity experience, I've made this one game in Unity, I'm like, cool, tick, great. I can spend a month teaching you our system. That's not a problem. Same with spatial planning. This is like um, showing beautiful screenshots can be very tempting in a portfolio. This is a beautiful screenshot. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you did. I don't know what you were planning. I don't know what your intent is. Unless you're an environment artist, then like, cool, beautiful, awesome. But even then, I don't know which parts you did, which parts are from an asset pack, whatever. You need to really make it clear. Even showing me something like this and highlighting these points and talking about them, I can see like, oh, okay, they've identified the flow of the space. They've identified the elevated portions. They've identified that this is a richer area of the city and it is elevated. And they've identified that this is the poorer area of the city and it is physically lower than everything else. There's a separation of space here. Oh, design. Oh, and then I go to this and I'm like, okay, there's intent behind this. You haven't just put down some buildings and put some things because it looks cool. You've thought about it and there's reasoning for it. So show me stuff like this. Please don't show me stuff like this. I just don't know what to make of it. Design decks, like a presentation, a design. These are cool. Keep them short. Show me just really high level stuff. Make it super clear. You in your brain as a designer or developer will have all of the nuance, like edge cases, and here's what happens when this happens. I'm not going to understand that. I don't know your game. But
About 6 slides short.
yeah, I'm talking like three. If you show me these three, five, um, try not to show wall of text. Like if you see these thumbnails here, this is perfect. I don't even need to really zoom in to see. I can see like mission start, intro, cool. And as somebody looking at somebody's portfolio, I'll spend exactly this much time. I'll go, oh, cool design deck, feature intent, yep, overview, yeah, cool, great. That's it. I can, yeah,
Slides. But I think it's different, like reinforcement of just that.
yep.
That's perfect.
That'll be perfect. I would skip through them all, skim them, and go, this person gets it. Yep, they did it. we every studio you work for, or if you make games yourself, like you'll have your own process. So you'll learn what that is. I just need to know that you can follow a structure and that you can put stuff together and present things.
As students, is there like a value for us sort of like taking some of these things that you would look for, right? And going back into our previous like sort of like ad hoc-y game jammy sort of things and going back and sort of like thinking about some of this stuff and making like design docs for them just to sort of like
Mm.
show that we can do that sort of analytical thinking.
Absolutely. Do them retroactively
Just go back in there and make those and be like, perfect.
without hyperbole.
Yes.
Every single design document you've seen from a big AAA studio has, I would bet money on, that's not
Retroactive.
the design document that they started off with. Like, absolutely no shade to these folks at all. They're amazing. I got a lot of friends that work at Insomniac, and they're very good at what they do. And I tune in every year when they go to GDC, and they go, "Here was our plan for Spider-Man 2, like web slinging mechanic." I'm like, "No, it wasn't. No, you didn't know you needed those weighted values. You didn't know." Yeah, which is fine, but that's a bit of behind the curtain too. Of like, they want their studio to look good. They want their studio to be like, "Look, we had it all figured out. We had it planned." Some don't. Some are more honest. A lot of the indie talks you'll go to will be like, "I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I did this, and those are awesome." Again, take with a pinch of salt the big budget ones you see. Yeah, don't dig into edge cases. Avoid hypotheticals. Use certain terms with these, and just give me a real high overview thing. Also, to note, I don't know the mechanics of this, but I'm very happy to share these documents with everybody. If you want to pour through it at your leisure, then you can do that. Same thing with diagrams. These are, oh, you're no, yeah. I do that as a designer. I go, ooh, great. You care about how things fit together. You don't just care about how they look or vibes. Yeah, I would. But be concise. I'm not gonna understand a big sprawling diagram. Just seeing one or two of these in a portfolio is enough. I know that, yep, you've done it. Great. That's it. And there's free tools for this. We touched on this earlier, influences outside of games. These are super important. Um, it is always a benefit if I see somebody's resume and I see that they bring in their own like values into the games that they're making, or they bring their own experiences in, especially if somebody has a unique background or a lived experience that is important to them and they've really embraced that, put that into their game. Amazing. Great. Um, it is sometimes difficult to discern what somebody's intent was if they look at it, if they go, "I wanted to make Counter-Strike meets Overwatch." That's cool. That's great. But I would, video games are so early on in their development. Like, we've been writing literature for a millennia, and we've been making art since, human beings were a thing. We like to think in the video games industry that we are coming up with these problems first and that we are solving for these things. And then you go to theater and you're like, yeah, we know about, we've been fixing this, all the misconception between the ludonarrative dissonance between the audience. And yeah, no, we've solved for that. Like, we've done it. Yeah, yeah. We use these techniques. And so there's always stuff to be bringing in from films, from books, you know, um, use that, leverage it.
Yeah, that's one shot.
That's Watch Dogs. Some of this is for, yes, it's from Watch Dogs. I'll say the rest of it off microphone. Be wary of showing too much. So I've told you, like, show this, show this, show this. That's all true. Be careful. Be careful. Show me your best work. This is Assassin's Creed Infinite. No, not Infinite. Yes, Unity. Yeah. Don't show me too much. It is overwhelming. It'll be really hard for somebody to look through and actually pinpoint what you want. Most of the time, you probably know this, but your resume is not going to go straight to a designer. It's going to go to a hiring manager at best. I hope it goes to a hiring manager first. It might go through some software. Nothing we can do about that. But what we can do is, as soon as it comes across somebody's desk, you want to highlight your best work, make it really easy for them to go, yeah, cool, great. If you make it difficult for them to piece together the things to make you good for the role, it's going to be really challenging. And I see this all day, every day, and it's a real shame because I'm sure in here there's really good stuff. I can't piece it out. And when I'm looking at a dozen other people who have made it really easy for me to understand what they're good at, I'm not going to go with this. And yeah, just give me ammunition to fight for you. I can say all of the behind closed door discussions, all of the interview panels, sincerely, nobody has ever been looking to say no to somebody. All these decisions are always really difficult. We're always looking for like, this person's really good at this. And I'm looking for things. I'm going back through your portfolio and I'm like, can they do that? Do they have elements of this skill? This other person can do this, but I liked this person's, like, they were good, like, attitude and culture fit. So, like, is there something we can do? Just give me that ammunition. Make it really easy for me to take out of your portfolio, out of the interview, out of the resume, like, because people are there to fight for you and people are there to, like, say yes. I will say also be open to many roles. Again, game development has never been more diverse in terms of roles and jobs that you can do and tools that you can use to achieve those roles. Like, if you're into design, there's no reason you can't get into video game through QA testing or through art or through programming. I've seen like there's a lot of movement within studios. Like more than half of the movement into design I see is either through QA, people come into design, or through art, where people want to get more hands-on with the gameplay experience. I see it go the other way. I had a level designer I was working with who's actually like, you know what, I just want to make beautiful environments. And the fact that they are already in the company, I could just go directly over to the lead artist. So I'm like, hey John, Aaron really wants to be an art. Like he's really good as well at art. You should check out his portfolio. He's like, we're looking for someone actually. We're a bit behind. Yeah, okay, great. Let's do it next week. And it happens quickly. So just because you get in one way doesn't mean that's it. If you are having a challenging time looking for a certain discipline, don't be married to like, I've got to be a game designer at Blizzard. That's it. That's the only thing that I want to do. Look for other things you can do. There's lots of different pathways to get there. Even in support staff, right? There's a lot of people that work like um, in the events teams and in we actually had somebody working in accounting and then who wanted to go into game balancing, like economy balancing. And it's like an accountant's a really good person to work in spreadsheets all day. And yeah, and the soft skills and how you are as a person, how you work together as a team is way more important than your ability in Unreal or your ability to, use a certain animation package software. That is not trivial to teach, takes a lot of work and time, but it is much more quantified. It's just time and effort. You put enough time towards learning Maya, 3ds Max, you will get better at it. That's not always to be said about how you work with other people and teamwork. So if a company's looking at somebody internal who's like, they're really great, everybody loves working with this person, and they're like, well, if we just train them for 6 months, then they'll be awesome at that thing. They'll do that over hiring a brand new person for the role. And there's so many. This is even just this scratching the surface, right? You've got like you be a game designer, but maybe you be an economy designer, a systems designer, a combat designer. You want to be a programmer? Cool. You can be a core tech programmer, user interface, tools. You want to go into writing? Cool. Do you want to be a narrative designer, a script writer? Like you have so much scope now. And game companies are also very interested in individuals who are pretty spiky into like one thing. You'll hear this a lot where it's like T-shaped individuals you might have heard about, where it's like, we want you to be a specialist in animation, but we also want you to have some specialities in, some writing ability and some art ability. So being multifaceted as well, like especially if you're working at a small company, the benefit is that you do get to do a bunch of stuff. So you're not always going to just be doing one thing. No, seriously though, finish and ship games. Really do that. Use different tools. If you are bad at one, try another one. You can get to grips with Twine and make a narrative adventure game in a weekend. Like, just do it. It won't be good The writing won't be amazing, but you would have done it. And you can put out a game, be like, it's a murder mystery adventure. It's a thing. Here it is. I did it. And if I'm looking at your resume, I'm like, they completed a game. Amazing. It's exciting. That is it. That's all of my pro tips. Again, it's all about increasing your luck. I'm very happy to chat some more as well. But yeah, show your work. Give me a reason to fight for you behind the scenes and just keep making games.
When you say finish and ship games,
Yes.
that's not finish your game jam and post it. It's like make more of a finished product than just that, right? At least that makes sure you've got all your layers of polish on there, like your start screens, your exit screens, your sound effects, stuff like that. Or
Yeah, when I say there's an element of shipping. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Yeah. Well, hey, buddy,
oh, sorry,
take
grab a card.
take this. Yeah, I've got my business cards and stuff. I'll share all my details afterwards. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, sorry, what was the question?
When you say finish and ship games,
Oh,
do
yes.
you mean make the finished indie jam, or just like get what you've got polished up a bit more and then post
Well,
it?
get what you've got polished out. Like if what you've got is a if what you've got is a really core loop, but you don't have any pause functionality, you don't have any like it's a 2 hour game, but you can't save your progress. Like just put all of those things in that are we call them table stakes, the things that just players need and expect. Get those in, call it shipped. Doesn't mean it needs to be the 10 out of 10 version of everything. It just needs to be a functional, like playable experience. And one of those is worth 10, like, here's a snapshot of this one tiny mini game that you can play. And oh, if you ignore this glitch and this bug and this glitch, then you can kind of see this gameplay loop. Like, that's nowhere near as interesting as just a small experience I can play start to finish.
You mentioned table states.
Yes,
What are those? Like,
please bring me up on any weird language I use because I like even between different game studios, I've gone like, oh, we need to make sure we get our CTAs done. Like we need a really strong CTA, and like, yeah.
not
We got me
really.
later. They're like, what's a CTA? A call to action. So it'll be like, rescue the princess is a strong call to action. Hearing a scream from around the corner is a strong call to action. It's like I'm doing something. Table stakes is um, how would I explain it? It is the expectation, it is like the baseline expectations. So if you're making a survival crafter video game, I expect survival mechanics and I expect there to be crafting. That's table stakes. You can't come like it's not very. If you come to me saying we're going to make this innovative game, survival crafter, it's going to have a crafting system and survival mechanics. I'm like, that's a survival
That's how they
crafter.
work, yeah.
A platformer, I need to have tight controls. I need to have precision jumping. That's table stakes for a platformer. So these are just the kind of things you just need. Sometimes it's good to identify them as table stakes because sometimes you don't need to innovate there. So like a platformer, unless you're making something really unique, you could just steal the jump cut. Steal. You could just borrow from uh, and
You don't
be
have the default
inspired by.
controller.
You could kidnap the jump curve from another game and just take that like not that code, but just like oh they use this method to calculate a jump curve. They use this amount of coding time. Great, just do that. You have other stuff to do in your platformer. Don't spend time making your jump perfect or be like, I want to make my jump physics different because it's too similar to these other games. Doesn't matter. Just use what they do. It's table stakes.
Questions? I have another one if no one else does. Um, oh,
So, you mentioned uh, that it's generally best to get a lot of very small games together. What would you say is about the like ideal size for those, and then like minimum and maximum sort of
Mm.
size?
1 to 5 minutes of gameplay. Honestly, like just keep it short. You can get a vibe for a game really quickly. We've all like, if you grab a free game off PS Plus or off of Epic or whatever, and you play it, you'll launch it. You'll like likely you'll play it for a few minutes. You'll be like, oh, I get it. That's often all you need, especially in games of the scale and that we'll be making. They need to be like, you need to get me into the game really quickly. It can be really on the nose with what it is. I would avoid trying to be too subtle. Like pretend that I am an idiot playing your game and that I need everything spelled out for me because it'll be so obvious to you. It'll be so obvious if you're trying to pull some nuance or you're trying to thread some needle on something. It's going to go over my head completely. And you're like, no, of course it's a roguelike deck builder. And I'm like, I just spent 5 minutes going through dialogue. I don't know what this is. Like, get me into it really quickly, make it really obvious it's that thing. And yeah, don't be shy about making loads of 1 minute experiences. And then you can still highlight those really effectively on a portfolio, right? And you don't need to show them all too. You can show like, there's lots of strategies. The ones I like are like you have an archive on your profile, on your portfolio that has just a bunch of, or your itch page that has a bunch of like, here's everything. And then you have like a main page which has like, here's the top ones. So if I'm coming to your portfolio, I'm like, here's the ones you want me to see. And I might wander off and go see the other stuff, but I know to really only look at these. Those are the ones you're the most proud of, or that are the most relevant for the role too. If you've made a dozen games and you want to, you're applying to a studio that does mainly RPGs, like Tolarian or something. You can send them a portfolio and a resume that's like, check out some RPGs that I've made. Here's a link directly to those. And so now you're tailoring it to them because nobody at Larian's going to be super interested in the puzzle platformer that you've made because they don't do that. But they do want to play your RPGs.
Yeah.
If you're more of an artist and don't really know the technical aspects, how do you make what's the word? If you can't make a full game by yourself, how do you kind of put yourself into, you know, I'm not good with words.
I know, I totally, I get what you're saying. It's kind of like how do you show off your ability?
To
Uh,
make games when you can't do the
totally.
harder parts of it. You're more technical.
Mods are a really great one, like making a mod for an existing game or a new asset pack for an existing game. And then a lot of mod tools are really pretty simple, where it's like drag and drop, and you can piece together an environment, or you can piece together a scenario, or you can take an existing scenario and be like, I took Baldur's Gate and I wanted to know what this would look. I wanted to explore what this looked like as a Wild West theme. And I made a whole bunch of Wild West assets to go here. And it's Karlak at a table with with some
Put a
thing.
cowboy hat on your Carlac.
Yeah, yeah. And then I can say like, okay, cool. You tried to fit this theme. You tried to work within these metrics and these constraints. Okay, this person gets it. They know how to not just make beautiful art. They know how to make it functional for a video game.
Sort of like if you made like a Stardew Valley character portrait mod, if that's the thing you would value.
Exactly, yeah. And then seeing, no, don't just show me the pack, show me it in game. Show
Yeah,
me like, and it doesn't, I'm not expecting you to have made the perfect walkthrough environment, puzzle, whatever. I just want to see it physically in there.
in
And
engine.
then it's good. Yo. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh, I get this from a lot of the professors I talk to. It's the same thing of like, yeah. Yeah. I was a jerk as well. I did the same thing. I was like, no, they'll definitely read my 100-page game design document. No, they didn't. I, Mm. It's going to be such an unsatisfying answer, but like, it depends. No, like short answer, no. Long answer, kind of. Short answer is like the industry moves really fast. The skills that are in demand move really quickly. There's never been a portfolio that I've seen that's been like, ha ha, this is it. In fact, it kind of goes inversely. It's inversely proportional to somebody's experience. Like if somebody's fresh out of college or they've made one or two games, normally their portfolios are really like really very, very good. It's people that have been working in games for like 10 years where I'm like, they're like, EA between 2000 and 2010 on this game. And I'm like, what did you do? What's that? Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. There is. There's a few. I'll get them on screen in a second. Actually, 'cause a few come to mind, and I can. That's a really good exercise. I can walk through why these ones have stuck with me after so many years. Um, I would say presentation is important, but don't be trapped by like a um there's a lot of speculation or there's a lot of things that look very cool in for like influencers or on LinkedIn or whatever. That's like you should do a skill. The word please don't make a skill tree or a progress bar thing. Please don't make your resume gamery, like look like a Steam profile or anything else. It's not that they're inherently bad. It's just that it's a really poor use of your time. And I would much rather you spend all of that time making a game or showing off something than trying to make it your resume look like a Steam page with your portrait in there. And we don't need that. It should just look like a resume. It's boring. The most impressive thing is you've heard this advice before, but I'm happy to give it one page resume. It's got to be tailored to the job that you want. It's believe me, I know it sucks. It's a lot of effort. It takes a while, but it shows immediately in the first two sentences of me reading your resume. I know that you've written it specifically for this. You don't need to rewrite every single word new, but at minimum, you definitely need to go through and be like, the job description is this. It says they want um, uh, here at a company Y, we make big immersive worlds and we pride ourselves on our RPG mechanics. I've worked on big immersive worlds and RPG mechanics. You like just literally copy and paste certain key phrases, and
Especially with the bots that cycle through these
especially
resumes
with
too,
that,
they're looking for those key phrases and they just
and
throw stuff at
also
them.
some hiring managers are better than others, and some hiring managers do just have a list of like, I need somebody who's done generative AI. And you might know that, like, oh, yes, this is a part of generative AI. But if they don't see the word generative AI, they're like, I don't know what. I know what A star is. They'll be like, oh, I don't know the thing. I know what.
Do they look at the cover letters more, or is it more important that it's
Cover letter's good. Again, cover letter is good to just highlight things in your resume. I've seen them used well for like, you know, hey, I saw this thing. Just keep it really short. Nobody's reading a page that's a cover letter. Got to keep it like, hello. So I'm excited by this opportunity. I think I'm a really good fit for this reason, this reason, this reason. Check my resume out. Here's some pieces from my portfolio you might want to check out. Hyperlink, hyperlink, hyperlink. Let me know. Awesome. That's what we need. Keeping it super broad, just make it really easy for somebody to be there and be like, click, click, click. LinkedIn page, resume, portfolio, YouTube video starts playing. Okay, yeah, it'll probably take about 30 seconds of them going,
Barrage them with information.
yeah, yes, and make sure all that information is tailored to the job that you want. If a recruiting manager gets a cover letter through that's like hello, sir or madam. I am interested in this. The
Worthless.
reality is there's so much volume that it's not gonna get through. So yeah, tailoring the resume is very important. Um, there was another really good part of your question that I think I've forgotten. You said, what are good examples? And um, is there anything else that I haven't covered yet apart from the exam? Yeah, yeah. I think it is definitely just like, have you read the job description? Do you know what kind of games this studio makes? If you're applying to Ubisoft and you're talking about making, try to think of the opposite of an Ubisoft game.
Something small, concise, specific.
Ah, we'll talk afterwards when we're not on. No, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Um,
Anything that's not an open world
or
sandbox.
like a 1v1,
Yeah.
like if you're like, hey, I specialize in making like, 1v1 PvP games, like that's not the company that does that. They're not going to be super interested in talking to you. Whereas if you're like, I love big worlds, you don't need to wax poetically about the company.
I like tall towers and I like viewpoints.
Love viewpoints. Um, yeah. What is important is like, yeah, showing that you've done a bit of research, showing that you've like, you know what that company does. You don't need to, kiss somebody's butt about it. You can just be like, hey, I'm a big fan of what you do. Love this game, love to be a part of it.
Goes and gets a
Here's what I
tattoo of an
can.
Assassin's Creed logo to apply at Ubisoft.
Like,
I got a tattoo
we've
now.
had we've had a lot. We used to have people come to the office and like they would wax poetically at the poor receptionist who was like, I'm just here to like I can't help you get a job. Um, yeah, we haven't had that yet. We did have somebody come in with a briefcase and they just left the briefcase there and they're like, this is for Ryan. Here you go. And they were like, oh, okay. And then somebody took it to the CEO and was like, yes, we just left this briefcase for you. And it has like on the outside, it was like, had a bit of paper that said like, I want to apply for this job. I want to show off my design skills by I made you a little puzzle briefcase thing. And the CEO was like, why did you bring that briefcase into my office? Let everybody leave now,
It's a
immediately.
puzzle box that everyone just thinks is a box.
Everything was fine, but it was like, don't do that. Don't be, there's creative and there's creative, like plain text is fine.
It's quite creepy.
Yes,
Everyone's so creative.
plain text is fine. Like one page is totally fine. It doesn't need to look like, well, okay, it depends. If you're an artist, if you're a graphic designer as well, you probably want to have your resume speak to that. But everything's going to come out in your portfolio too. But especially a hiring manager, if a hiring manager gets things that are formatted in a different way, they're not going to try and jam. If they get like an origami envelope that does a thing that is a one-page resume, that's what it needs to be like. Just needs to be
Hides
concise.
your resume in a cookie catcher.
Yeah, concise to the point, and also recognize that you do have a lot of skills to offer. Like it's kind of it's not very intuitive, but it's a weird vibe when you get resumes or portfolios really like kind of begging to work there or really like this would be my lifelong dream to do this thing. It kind of puts the person on edge a little bit because there's like, are they too much of a fan to really separate that? Like, because I want somebody to be a professional and we're going to pay you a salary to do this. We're not doing you a favor.
It's a
You know,
job.
this is like you have a certain set of skills and we want to pay you to do those skills here. So we want you to show that you know you have skills. Be like, hey, I can offer this. I feel I can bring this to the table. I feel like it would be a really good fit because I also, and doing a little bit of research too makes the other person feel good. If you're like, oh, because I noticed also that you have this learning incentive at your studio. That's really appealing to me because I always want to be growing and being able to learn outside of work is also great. Doesn't really matter what you said. But I'm like, they did the research. They know we're doing that. Cool. They're actually pretty interested in this job. This isn't just one of the thousand, even if you are sending out 100 resumes a day, which like I have done and all power to you, great. But getting that person to feel like they've, done their research. Yeah, I have one in mind, a resume that's always stuck with me as being pretty great. And I'm going to embarrass them and show it to a room full of people. I'm gonna go off this for a second while I find it, so you don't get to see all of my internet history and tabs that I have. It's mainly just imager and pictures of cats. It's mainly just, yeah. Okay. So I'll say, please don't compare yourself to this is one of the best resume portfolios I've ever seen. So this guy, Rob Klinker, he's a level designer. He works at Unseen in Japan. We worked together at Ubisoft. He was actually a QA tester on Starlink, one of the games we made ages and ages ago. And he just time is it's probably like 8 years old now. Like
Perfect. You have to plug it in my Switch.
yeah, uh, yeah. It's sorry. We worked together. He was awesome at QA. Something I'll say too is like if you do end up going through a different avenue to get into design or to get the game you want, to get the job you want, the first thing you want to do is just be awesome at that job because we started talking to him when he started being like, hey, I'd really actually be interested in getting into game design. I was really keen because I'm like, I know you're an amazing QA and like QA person. This is awesome. Yes, I would love to help skill you up in design and work with you. So he's a level designer. This is his portfolio. You can or cannot put a picture of yourself. Like it means nothing to me. Some people like doing it. Some people don't. Do whatever you want. Um, doesn't doesn't matter to me. So I'm a hiring manager looking to get more information on Rob. Immediately I can be like, look at his resume. It's right there. There's no like, where do I find his resume? It's here. It's the first thing I see. Boom. It's one page. Says his skills. Says the work he's done. His experience. Where I've spent 10 seconds and I already know most of what there is to know on paper about this dude. Super quick. Just really to the point. What I then do, this is the path that I would go through if I'm hiring somebody. I'm like, oh, cool, he worked on Far Cry 6. That's cool. What did he do? Oh, here it is. I found it immediately. I haven't had to go hunting for what he did on this project. I'm like, oh, he did mission design on this project. Cool. Let's have a look. Okay, he did these missions, treats their missions. What were they? Each one, he unlocks these two things. Okay, cool. Over easy blood. Okay, he did quite a few missions. Liquid Courage. Okay, so he's a pretty good mission designer then. Okay, he's done quite a lot. Um, oh, I'd like to know more about the treats him. That dog is cute. I'd love to know more about it. This design breakdown, what's that? Earn his trust, explore, find some crocodile meat. Key. Okay, it's like a fetch quest that he did. Oh, okay, cool. Showing me what that mission is. Guess I got to get that thing. Okay, and I assume I get the crocodile meat and I got to take it to Treatser. So he probably did the mission markers for all of it. Cool. Oh, yeah, he did. Okay, he placed those. He made sure that it did worked really well. Oh, he probably set up the scripts here to like follow the dog and all we call them STPs. What are they called? What does that stand for? STP it's an Ubisoft term of like, oh shit, STPs standard. Do you know what? I can't remember, but it's something about like static terrain point, which is just when the AI gets here, it's a static terrain point. Tell them to do an animation. So, oh, cool. He's done like a little overlay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is his. Oh, yeah, I can see how that space flows together. He's got that boardwalk here and across here. Okay, that's pretty cool. This is Vista, better awards. Yeah, okay, cool, great. I've got a pretty good idea of what that mission was. What's this one about? Liquid Courage. Prototypes, a prototype that he did? Exactly. Exactly. He's taken that like philosophy elsewhere. And above all else, he's just made it so easy for me to look at his work. I haven't had to do anything. I'm just scrolling through. These clips are auto playing. They're all high quality. It's all really obvious what everything is trying to show. I don't have to like, wait, what? What was that trying to show? I'm like, okay, this twists this. Oh, it's a rocket and it's going into the ceiling. That's smart. And then he sets up these grapples. Okay. Oh, these are cool. He set up little like overlays so I can see like his intent and how he blocked out the space. Like if I was doing this in real life, I would have stopped looking 5 minutes ago and gone, yes, we're giving this person a call 100%. So yeah, I'll share this dude's portfolio with you. Rob's great. He would also be ecstatic to talk to anybody and offer any advice. I'll let him know that I shared this with you all. He is a good egg. But yeah, this one's pretty good. Are there any others that I found that were pretty good? Any questions on this or things you want more information on? Oh yeah, here's some of his like coursework that he did. He did like a level design, like what does he do? It's a diploma, and again, just shows very clearly his work, what he did. There's no confusion here about like he's not showing me a game world that looks beautiful that I'm walking around. He's showing me a block out, and so I know exactly the work that he did. Um, yeah, yeah. And then conversely, if you are like an engineer, want to show off some mechanics that you've like prototyped, you could just show me a series of cubes that the player is jumping over, and it's like I made this jumping double jump mechanic. And so it's very clear from me that like, okay, it's just a series of cubes, it's just a gym. You did the other thing. It is, yeah. Then you can see here that it's just he just highlights the work he wants to show, and everything's super clear. Like it's super clear here. This is just a rig that he got from somewhere, that it's not, something that he's showing off. Correct. Yeah. And that's a really actually really great point. Like I don't need to know the whole scope of your game. You're not trying to sell me this game on Steam or as an investor or something. You're just trying to show me this part of the game. There's lots of artists that work on 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 games, but they're phenomenal artists and they don't need to go. What was the Bethesda vampire game, Redfall? That
Redfall.
wasn't particularly good. Yeah. Um, I have a lot of artist friends who worked on Redfall.
The character
And
designs are great.
they're awesome. They're
Yeah.
great. And they don't need to go around on their portfolio and go, okay, but it was a vampire game by this. They just go, here's the models I made. Here's the animations. Here's the rigging.
One of my favorite YouTubers worked on Evolve, and some of the character designs in that game are so cool.
Yeah.
MCDM.
Yeah. So this is, I mentioned about like game dev YouTube and game dev like GDC stuff. Definitely in the same way that you should take everything that I say with a grain of salt, and please walk away from here being like, well, I don't agree with 20% or whatever and said it's a bit out of touch, but the rest of it, sure, maybe. Please be very, um, be a healthy skeptic with stuff you see on YouTube, game dev, even stuff like it is extra credits is awesome, is great, even stuff like that, that their goal is to make a very polished video that kind of ties everything up very neatly. And a lot of these channels like game dev notebook, is it game dev toolkit? Game makers toolkit, thank you. It's really good. It's a really good useful resource, but a lot of the he does a lot of demakes of games, or he does a lot of deconstruction of games, and a lot of the time he'll be doing like, this is how they put together the Zelda dungeon, they thought about these things, and I'm like, this fuck, no, they didn't. Like, no one's doing that. They play tested it to within an inch of its life, and then they did that. Nobody's there thinking about, well, we should have a bifolded door here because it creates a sense of this. It's like, no, they had that asset and they reskinned it and they did it like this because it worked. Yeah. Yeah, why are the curtains blue? It's like maybe yeah, or maybe it works coincidentally, right? Like my favorite example of this is always the early like the Souls games. Like there's so many lore video. I think they do it purposefully now, but there's so many lore videos of the early games where like, what did it mean that this enemy had 3 coins in their pocket? Is the 3 coins are definitely analogy to the 3 kings, and it must mean that this was a sacrifice to them, and so they must be part of this order. And I'm like, dude, a designer was just there and they just threw a loot table in there and they just gave him 3 coins. Like it's not as deep as you probably think it is. Maybe it is, maybe I'm wrong, but there's so much coincidental stuff that happens in games, or things that work, but they work kind of um they don't work because somebody sat there and thought this will work this way. It works because it did well in a playtest, and we're just like, cool, that did well in a playtest. So yeah, don't feel like you have to be as scientific about it as them. Like the best thing I like seeing in a portfolio is like, we made this in the top left. I then play tested it. I realized that this was too much. There was too much open space there, so I changed it. And here's what I did next. Then I learned this. I changed it again to this. I'm pretty happy with this one for these reasons. Then I moved on. I'm like, tick, 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 tick. Great, exactly. Yes, you can if you want. Yeah, yeah, that's really useful. Um, yeah, this is the only one I can think of right now. Um, yeah, yeah, and I don't know if this is a particularly good level. I don't know if this flows particularly well, but his in his intent is to model this kanji, and he did it. And I'm like, cool, you stuck with it. Like you can also see that he didn't do a bunch of stuff where it didn't work. Like cool, he must have changed it a little bit, but I can see the intent there. And I think with this one, he actually mentions like, uh, do yeah. That's it. I will go on the search for some other ones as well after this, and I'd be happy to show you all. But you really don't have to make like this is frankly this is very very good, and from somebody who's been a game developer and has shipped multiple games, so you don't have to reach that caliber. I definitely wouldn't go away and just sharpen your pencils and just be like, I've done it. Yeah, I have to get my resume perfect before I can start applying for jobs. It's like you don't need to have a resume that's functional and have a good, decent portfolio that gives a good impression. But that's a continuing thing. It's a living document. It's something you should continue to work on, and not just continue to work on for the sake of it. And like, oh, I should redo my portfolio. I should redo my portfolio. Go and make another game and then put that on your portfolio, and then go and make another game and put that on your portfolio, and then your portfolio will just get better. Like I don't have mine up anymore because I forgot to pay the server things, but mine's not particularly good, but it's functional just as a bunch of thumbnails. It's just a one pager. It's just got 6 thumbnails, and you click on each one and it just shows you the game and what I did on it. That's what it is, and it's good enough. It was fine. Definitely could have put more work into it. Definitely could have polished it up more, but I think my time was better spent actually going and making some games. And yeah. Oh, one other thing actually I didn't put in here that is super important too about like, yeah, how to increase your luck and whatever. Do stuff like this. Take opportunities where if somebody's doing a talk or if somebody like from industry is showing up at a place, turn up, learn from other people. I certainly don't have all the answers to things. You'll probably talk to somebody in a few weeks' time and get better advice about a bunch of stuff. Like take what works with you for you. But the games industry is very small still. It is. Everybody knows everybody. I haven't meant to name drop, but through this, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I worked at Blizzard and at Activision and at this, like, because people just go places and then you have a network. You don't have to work in games to get that. There's lots of like even Discord events you can be a part of. And if you are able to travel, there's lots of in-person events that you can go to. I would say the best thing you can do is to sincerely try and make friends with other game developers rather than go to them asking for jobs, because it is intimidating to, if I'm there, like I love going to a bunch of game dev meetups, but my studios we have a freeze on hiring right now, and I would love to chat with more people, but I can't. Um, so then when people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm a student who wants to get into game design, do you have any openings? Now we're not having as productive a conversation as we could, as opposed to if that person came up to me and they're like, oh, hey, what games you worked on? I'm like, oh, I worked on this one, this one. Oh, that Connect one. I think I played that Connect game. That was a bit weird. I'm like, yeah, it was a bit weird. Now we're friends. Now we're just talking. Some guy I was working um, remotely at a cafe somewhere, just like play testing our game that we haven't released yet. And um, my now friend Ricardo, he was just walking past and he was like, is that Crypt of the Necrodancer stuff? Like, I love that game. And I was like, oh yeah, we're working on the sequel. I didn't work on the original one, but I work there. And he's like, oh no way, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah man, I work there. What are you doing? Oh, I'm a student for games. Fantastic. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, yeah, if you want to playtest anytime, like, he's like, oh, that would be amazing, great. And now we meet up all the time. We have coffee. Now I know he's a good dude. I know that he's, skilled at what he does. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm looking for opportunities for him because I know he's a good person and he's skilled and wants to get into games. And if you just multiply that out with people you sincerely make friends with, we all want to work with our friends and make video games. That's the dream. So approaching it that way, if you go to networking events, don't be too focused on, I got to go to GDC and hand out my business card to people. Go to GDC to make friends. Go there to meet other developers. People love talking about their games. You're not going to bother somebody even if it's quite intimidating. We have Daniel, I think his last name, the developer behind Inscription. He's renting like a desk at our office in Vancouver. And he started coming to the office, and I was like, "Oh, it's the guy! Like, I love that game. It's amazing." And I was pretty intimidated for a bit to be like, "I can't just go over there and say like how much I love his game." And I started to talk to him, and he's like, he loves it. He loves it when people come up to him and talk to him about his game, like he's a human being. And everybody loves that. If you just go like, "Oh, you're part of this game? I love that. It was really cool. I loved it when you did this thing." Oh yeah, you don't need to then show off your design to be like, I wonder how you did this and this, and that can sometimes be quite exhausting if you approach somebody with like an intense developer question. But just showing up, wanting to chat, wanting to make friends with other game devs, sincerely, that really shows, and that's the best way I've seen it done. Yeah.
On that note, with us being here in Kamloops and Vancouver kind of being the closest game dev scene,
Yeah.
is there any like Vancouver things that we should keep an eye out for to go to and sort of that way we can do this like
Yeah, for sure.
mingling, meeting, chatting, having fun, right? Correct. Correct. But that's why I'm asking about the Vancouver one because, successful.
Yeah. um, for sure, there's SIGGRAPH that I think happens every year, which is more animation and engineering based. Not in Vancouver, but there's obviously PAX West that happens every
Seattle.
year, and it's in
And
Seattle.
that's what, September 2nd-ish this?
Yeah, and every Vancouver game dev is there as well. And there are specific Vancouver game dev meetups there as well. And everybody, I'm starting to realize how inside baseball the Vancouver game dev scene is as well. Like everybody just seems to know everybody, which is awesome. And people are very up for like introducing you to other people. What else? There's SIGGRAPH. There's the IGDA, the International Game Developers something Association. Thank you. They meet every month.
Oh, yes.
It's more of a hangout. Um, yeah.
Cool.
To do a plug, I run a video game trivia night every month that raises money for BC Children's Hospital, and most of the people,
Social life.
yeah, and most of the people there are game devs. So if you want to come down and like
Where's that
have
at?
it's downtown at a bar called Greta. It's like an arcade bar in Gastown.
Ooh. Kind of picking up XP's mantle.
Can you what, sorry?
Is it kind of taking up the mantle of the XP bar?
XP bar. I don't know what that
Oh,
was.
maybe that was before you got to Vancouver,
Maybe.
because they closed down like 5 years ago, something like that, maybe even more.
Timeline tracks. But yeah, turns out most of my friends are game devs, and they all show up and bring their game dev friends, and loads of people chat there as well. I'll find out some more for you, and I'll let you know too. I've been lazy the last 6 months and haven't done as many.
Yes, for a day trip just for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Drive all the way to Vancouver for
I'd be
trivia.
so ecstatic to see you at video game trivia. It'd be
It's
so
like the
fun.
one August 13th, guys.
Yeah. I always have a bullshit round too. That's like it's become increasingly more difficult to come up with questions that are easy because I could come up with difficult game trivia questions all day every day, but like coming up with the ones that are easy because I started bringing a game design lens to it. I started being like, okay, what do I want to achieve from this game? Game trivia. I want more people to come so I can raise more money for charity. Therefore, I want to cast a wider net. Therefore, I need easy questions because I want people who aren't just hardcore gamers to come and I want them to walk away feeling good. I don't want somebody who came in and said, "Oh, I've played some Super Mario," to come and get like 3 out of 50 and get destroyed by a bunch of nerds. There's only so many like Mario and Sonic questions I can think of that aren't like,
What is the first enemy you see on World 1-1 of Mario?
yeah, yeah. What's Mario's second name? It's also Mario.
Yeah, what about his middle name? Also Mario.
Yeah.
Mario, Mario, Mario.
Which I think they debunked recently. I think like Miyamoto or something had like put out something that was like it's actually not, or Bowser or something. So, um, yeah, just oh right.
Yeah, it's Doki. I know that.
Yeah,
Now
but,
Doki Doki has been corrupted by the Literature Club, though.
but you probably felt it too. Like I certainly started going to a lot of game dev meetups expecting them to be a certain thing, and I kind of walk away from it feeling a bit defeated if I didn't make contacts or if I didn't like oh, I didn't get, that person's business card or didn't do this other thing.
I was too shy to actually ask for that person's
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
And it's kind of, it's tough to do it that way because you feel very defeated. And I think I was aiming at the wrong thing where I should have just gone there and sincerely tried to make friends and
Hey, what's your Discord? Let's play some games.
get to know, yeah, and just play games with people and get to know people rather than just be like nervous and hyper focused on like, oh, I'm like in an interview for like 4 hours with like, an open bar and stuff. It's intense.
Roll up and play some Smash Bros with guys.
Yeah, if you half my studio plays Smash every time. Um,
Shockingly, I've
actually,
ever-
my first day with my first week, whatever, I asked Ryan Clark, the founder of Brace Yourself, to for lunch. I was just like, "Hey, let's go," and he's lovely, super approachable guy. Sit next to him. He's like, "Sure, let's go for lunch." And I'm still new to the company, so I'm trying to be like, "Oh, what do you know? What got you here to game dev?" and do all of that, like lunch with the boss. And then about halfway through, he's like looking at his watch. And he's like looking at looking at his watch. I'm like, oh, do you have like a 1 o'clock? Do you got to get back? He's like, yeah, I should probably head back a little early. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I'm again trying to give it all this as I walk back. I'm like, okay, so yeah, I've got this really great initiative I'd like to do. And he's like, yeah, sounds great, sounds great. And then I'm like, okay, he's very busy. Not taking it personally. He's probably got a lot to do. He's going to go back to his desk and get back to work. And he goes into the office and goes straight to the lounge and sits down and plays Smash Bros. With everybody. Everyone's like, oh, he's like, yeah, I'm going to kick your butt. And for a while, I was like, "Oh, cool! I'm gonna get fired. I'm gonna go like he just ditched me to go play Smash Bros. He hates me that much." And then after about 3 weeks, I'm like, "No, I think actually he built this company to play Smash Bros.
This is a Smash Brothers League
I think he's
hiding as a game dev company.
yeah." And he's like, "Sure, that's how I can. How can I attract lots of people who are good at Smash Bros. To make me a better Smash Bros.
I
player?
need a bloody competition,
I'll
y'all.
start a game dev
My
company."
friends are too bad at this game.
Yeah, but yeah, we all had the same background and past. We all played video games growing up. We all, have similar stories. We all like similar things. Just go there, be a cool person, make friends, and then don't not mention that you're looking for stuff. Just be like, oh yeah, I'm into this. I'm kind of looking for opportunities. If you know anything, let me know. But don't put that person on the spot in
Yeah.
an email.
No, hire me, please.
Yeah, like I've had people do that, and sometimes the best I can do is be like, we actually do have something like available. You should apply online because I can't.
Yeah.
We're not at the hit the pavement with your resume and go give it. We're not at that stage anymore. So even then, I can't really help you in the moment. Um, and even then, the best way to go about it is like, hey, yeah, let's chat for a while. I think you're pretty good. Oh, cool. You're into this. You're studying for a game design program. Okay, cool. Yeah, you should check out. We've gone into. I'll send you a link later on. I'd love to hear more from your portfolio. Like rather than directly going. I've talked for a long time. I'm happy to continue talking, but only if it is useful and talking about the things you want to talk about.
Well, we can then stream now and just sort of vibe for the next hour.
I'm into some vibes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.